Everyone, it's Channin here for Honeybee Stamps. In today's video, we are going to create this really bold and vibrant water lily card featuring the new Lovely Layers Water Lily Honey Cuts. I'm also going to share with you how to add some texture to your blended florals. I'm going to start with the Lovely Layers Water Lily set. I'm going to die cut everything except that die that I pointed out there. That die adds a detail layer to the smaller leaves. I'm not going to actually use that. I'm going to start by ink blending everything that would be green, the large lily pad, the smaller leaves, and the stem. I'm going to just ink blend them first with Twisted Citron Distress ink. Once I finish ink blending them, kind of a base with that, I'm going to go to a darker green. This is Mowed Lawn, and I'm going to ink blend the center of that lily pad, the top of the stem, and the center of the small leaves. Now we're going to move on to a shader brush. This is going to add the texture. This is shader brush 2. You can see it's very linear. I'm going to use this brush to create these almost like folds and waves in the lily pad. It's very simple to do, and it will add so much texture to these ink blended leaves. I'm going to start with that Mowed Lawn again and just pull from the edge of the lily pad towards the center with my brush. I am following along the embossed lines that the die creates in the cardstock. So I'm just kind of following along those lines and working my way towards the center. And you can already see how much texture that little bit of ink blending adds to over this lily pad. Just looks so cool. I'm going to do that also to the little leaves here at the bottom of this die cut for the small flower. And then we're going to move on to a darker shade. This is Rustic Wilderness. I'm using another shader brush here. This is shader brush number 1. You can see this is a round shader brush. And I'm just going to use this so I can more precisely ink blend with this Rustic Wilderness. I want to get some of this darker green at the center of the lily pad, at the tops of these leaves here, and a little bit on the stem as well, just to kind of add a little bit more contrast so it has more depth over on these die cuts. Now I'm going to go back to that shader brush number 2, that linear brush, and with that Rustic Wilderness, I'm going to add a little bit of that darker green to the edges again of my lily pad, just kind of darken them up a little bit more so they pop a little more. And then I'm going to start from the center out. So a little bit different now. We're going to work from the center coming out to the edges a little bit with that Rustic Wilderness to kind of continue those lines from the center out, and that just really makes that lily pad pop. It really amps up that texture. I'll do a little bit here on the little leaves. They're very small though, so there's not much you can do there. And now we're going to finish by grabbing a little bit more Twisted Citron and just kind of ink blending a little bit over that large lily pad a little bit more, just because I felt like it was not quite green enough. And that will actually complete my leaves and stem. Now moving on to the largest flower, we're going to grab a speckled egg and again that shader 2 brush, and I'm going to ink blend along those embossed lines on the petals to create this kind of streaky look over the petals. It not only shades and adds a little bit of like a shadow to the petal, so it adds some depth, but I'll also add a little bit of texture as well. So that's actually my top layer here. So I'm actually going to work kind of in reverse, starting with my top and then work on down to the bottom. And when I'm ink blending, you'll notice that I'm not ink blending all of the petals on these die cuts. That's because a lot of these petals will be covered up because they're layered on top of each other, these die cuts. And so anywhere where you see embossed lines, you know those petals are going to be visible. So those are the only petals that I'm actually ink blending with my shader brush and kind of creating that streaky look. And also I want to point out that I'm working from the center of the flower out. So I'm not working at the tips of the petals, but more from the center out of the flower to, again, add that depth and also that texture. Now that I've finished ink blending all my petals, I'm just going to go quickly assemble the flower without glue just so I can kind of see how it looks. And I really love how soft the color is, but still adds tons of depth and definitely some texture. Now we're going to move on to the flower center. There's just 2 layers for that. The top layer I'm going to ink blend in Mustard Seed, and the bottom layer I will ink blend in Spiced Marmalade. After I ink blend these 2 layers for the flower center, I'm actually ready to put this flower together with glue. I'm going to start with the bottom and work my way up to the top. I'm just going to add a little bit of glue to the center of each one of these die cuts. I'm doing that intentionally so I can actually kind of lift up the petals later and add more depth that way to this flower by just kind of popping those petals up a little bit. And by only gluing the center, the layers will stay together, but I will be able to lift those petals because they won't be glued. Now for the flower center, I'm going to go ahead and add glue to that top layer and glue it directly down to the bottom layer for the flower center. And then I will glue this to our card. To our flower. There's a nice little indication on the flower where it goes. So it's really easy to kind of line that up, and that will actually complete our large lily. So now all we have left to do is our small lily. I'm going to ink blend this the same way I did the large one. I'm just kind of ink blending from the center out with that speckled egg, creating those streaks along the petals. And then I will glue those layers together here, and that will complete our smaller flower. Now this smaller flower also gets adhered on to those leaves, so I'll just add some liquid glue to that and stick that down as well. And that, after we've glued that together, we basically have all of our die cuts done and we're ready to work on our background. So for the background, I'm going to use Speckled Egg Distress ink and ink blend kind of the upper 3/4 of this card front with that speckled egg. We're going to kind of create a gradation, but we're not actually going to go all the way up to the top, almost to the top, but not quite there. Then I'm going to move on to Mermaid Lagoon, and then I will finish up with some Uncharted Mariner. I'm intentionally keeping the blend kind of light right now with these 3 distress inks because we are going to eventually grab a stencil, place it on top, and ink blend more heavy-handedly with these same colors. So I do want to keep it on the lighter side. So I'm just about done here. Amped it up a little bit more with color, but it's still on the lighter side, not as heavy-handed as I typically blend. So I'm going to use this awesome Patina background stencil. I love this. When I saw this coming out in the release, I was so excited about it. I just love the texture of this stencil. I'm going to place it over my card front here that I ink blended with those 3 blues. Use a couple pieces of tape to just kind of hold that stencil in place, and we're going to ink blend with the same distress inks in the same places, but this time much more heavy-handedly to create this kind of tone-on-tone texture ombre look. So I've just finished with the speckled egg. I'm now moving on to Mermaid Lagoon, ink blending kind of that middle section of our ombre, and then I'll finish with that Uncharted Mariner at the very bottom. And this is just going to make a really pretty, bold, vibrant background, kind of mimicking water, and I think it'll be perfect for the water lilies. Now we're going to move on to our sentiment. I have the mini messages stamp set. I love this new stamp set. I love a linear sentiment, so when this came out too, I was so excited. I'm going to ink it up in Honeybee's clear embossing and watermark ink, stamp it onto some black cardstock. Then I will grab my white embossing powder, dip my sentiment in there, tap off the excess, and then of course heat set with my heat tool. After I've heat set this sentiment, I then am going to grab the mini message banners die set. So there's a coordinating die set here, and I'm going to use this to die cut out this perfect sentiment strip. Love that these dies are, there's also this die set with the sentiments, because not only does it allow you to get kind of nice and perfectly centered, but it kind of rounds the edges a little bit, kind of hold up so you can see. I love that look. It's so clean and polished. So now we're just ready to kind of bring it all together. I'm going to arrange my water lilies here on my card front. Once I get everything the way I like it, then I'll grab a piece of press and seal, place it over my water lilies, pick up the flowers and the leaves, and then I will flip this over and add some liquid glue to the backside of these die cuts so they can stick down. This is just an easy way to kind of keep your arrangement just how you had it, so that's why I like to use that press and seal. It's just a nice easy way to kind of keep that exactly the way you want it to be. So I added the liquid glue, placed it down. You of course could pop them up with foam adhesive, but I felt like we had a lot of dimension here just with the die cuts themselves. I've added some foam and adhesive though, a foam adhesive strip to the back of our sentiment and stuck that down. Now we're going to finish the card with these new Ombre pearl stickers. They were really pretty and I thought they really brought out some of the greens and blues in this card. So I placed a couple on the card front here, and after I've stuck those down, our card is complete. I'll hold it up to the camera here so you can get a good look at that. Those beautiful flowers. I love all the texture of the ink blending, that nice striky look, and then of course that gorgeous bold background. This is such a fun card. I hope you guys enjoyed today's card and video. If you have any questions about the products I use, please check out the links below in the description. Thank you so much for watching and I hope you have a wonderful day.